All right, we're back to answer the ultimate question. All of this flim flam around genetics, DNA, who are the original Americans? This is an easy thing to answer when you're honest, direct, and clear. Now, the biggest problem that we're having, especially with the people who look like me, is that they don't read and in the sense of adequate reading and then vet the material properly. So lots of people believe these people walked across some ice 15,000 years ago, stayed the entire time as the population here, Columbus came and the world shifted. That is the given narrative. That is a total hoax. It is misinformation. It is inaccurate. And so we got to answer this question, and it's an easy one to answer. We're going to deal with Albert Perry and clear the air on that, and we're going to deal with who was here according to excavations, etc. And in case you're wondering why I use these tribes, the Yamasee are the oldest tribe in the South, and the Cherokee are not even a real tribe, according to their own most renowned scholar, Charles Renatus Hicks. He talked about how the Cherokee basically attacked the mound builders to try to destroy their civilization. I always have to refer to the classical civilization in the Americas, the She, misnamed Olmecs, Mayans, etc. People give misinformation about their phenotype, etc. And here you have it. Oh, Mayans don't have a hair like you. Yes, they do. Actually, they do. And this is them depicting themselves. And so the reason why I'm showing this, it's art, but it's also depicting phenotype, which is genotype. And so the particular genes you need, MC1R, to make that skin color, the copper transport systems in the hair, they don't exist amongst the people you're calling Mayans today. So if you want to talk about genetics, we have to add in anthropology, we have to add in the witness documents, and we see the locks, we see the kinky hair, and we still ignore it because why? There is a severe hatred. I could go all day on the art, but the art speaks to the phenotype and the genotype. Since we're about to talk about Florida, let's go to what broke up the Clovis stuff anyway. The Page Lassen site, located underwater in Aquila River near Tallahassee, is primary pre-Clovis site in Florida, dating back approximately 14,500 years. This site contains stone tools and mastodon bones and cutting marks indicating human activity roughly 1,500 years before the Clovis culture, which was previously considered the first in the Americas. So they got the location and the evidence and the finds, and they're saying like, oh, this is not matching up with our story. Of course it's not. You wrote a story and Black Americans destroy your concept of evolution, and they also destroy what? Your entire matrix of history. Because if we were here giving the Egyptian cocaine, hape, cacao before Columbus, we had a whole network, a whole world that you don't want to talk about. We know why you don't want to talk about it. Now, let me go to the haplogroups in case you don't know what haplogroups are. You have male haplogroups and female haplogroups. Female haplogroups are charted through the mitochondrial DNA. Male haplogroups are charted by the Y chromosome. So here you have kind of a tree and a fork, and this is my particular rendition of what these groups represent. What the actual groups represent when you measure phenotype. Phenotype means what do the genes do? They're actually measuring antiquity and fertility. I always bring sources. And so when you start dealing with haplogroups into Eurasia, they're less fertile in evolutionary biology since less fit. All right. So you can look at these and you won't see A, B haplogroups on here. You're going to see D, E, F. Take a screenshot of that. Yeah, this deals with fertility. Who has the most potent ability to stay in existence? Now, this is the first article that came out about Albert Perry. And of course, if you read the article, it's very clear that he says in here that they did not find AO lineage in any sub-Saharan African hunter-gatherer populations. Then they tried to say they did. So let's fix that. Perry's genes do not match anybody in Cameroon's. Perry was born in Florida. Perry was not a slave. He was born in Florida. I'm going to show you the evidence so you can stop saying it, but let's kill the genetic thing, because now we're going to hold up the torch and say the oldest gene pool on Earth is in Black Southeastern North America, not from a slave. AOO is sometimes referred to as Perry's Y chromosome, or simply Perry's Y. This previously unknown haplogroup was discovered in 2012 in the Y chromosome of an African-American man who had submitted his DNA to Family Tree DNA. He was identified as a descendant of Albert Perry, hence the name. Mendez et al. 2013 announced the discovery of this previously unknown haplogroup, for which they proposed to designate her AOO. Perry Y would later be redesignated AOOA after the discovery of a similar but different group from Cameroon. AOOA is over here in America. Researchers later found AO was possessed by 11 Mibo males, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing that, West Cameroonian, Bantu, out of a sample. Subsequent research suggested that the overall rate of AO was even higher amongst that tribe. The tribe samples were later classified as its own subgroup, AOOB. So now I do DNA methylation testing, I do genetic testing, I have DNA electrophoresis machines, PCR machines, all of these things. I understand this subject at a greater level than any of the black geneticists that you have here. And we can come in the public and dialogue about it. Here you go. Look at the flags. These are Perry's descendants. These are the people in Cameroon. This is the S&P profile. Single nucleotide polymorphisms. Those mutations. They don't match. Screenshot. So this is Clyde.
I also want to throw in this. This is not a fact. This is not proven. But neither is the DNA that they're running with. So what they are doing is, with the DNA that they have in their database, they're finding DNA that your DNA compares to. So they're comparing your DNA to others to see who you might be related to. But that theory only works if people didn't migrate out of America and travel the world. See, there was a whole civilization with free trade and free travel and peaceful trade before the Europeans intervened and destroyed the whole thing. You know what I mean? So before they intervened and destroyed the whole thing, there could have been people from the Americas visiting Egypt and was like, oh, I love it here. We're going to lay down some roots here. You know what I mean? There could have been people from black people from over in the Asian continent moving over here or moving over there or moving over here. So this is why you can get DNA that compares, because even though that doesn't fit the mainstream narrative is in fact that everyone migrated out of Africa slowly, but no black people ever migrated to the Americas. They only migrated to Australia, Asia, Europe. They traveled the whole east of the world, but not once did they just get on a small boat ride across and the current would have carried them straight to South America. But we know this isn't true because they have mummies found with cocaine in them. Cocaine is found in South America or in the Americas and grows in the Americas. And then you have gold-tipped spears with iguanin, which is a alloy in Africa. And they were made exactly how they're made in Africa, found in South America. So, I mean, obviously there was peaceful trade. Obviously, these people weren't fighting or battling. They were able to. So if anybody from South America wanted to move to Africa, they could. Anybody from Africa wanted to move to South America, they could. Now, this isn't me arguing the point that Perry does have maroon DNA. No, I'm not arguing that point at all. I believe he doesn't. But at the same time, two things could be true at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, he could have DNA his DNA could compare to a cousin who migrated from the Americas, because let's say life started in the Americas and not Africa. Let's go with the out of America theory. Everything in DNA still can make sense. You know what I mean? But they don't use that narrative. And we have to also understand that race is a construct that these people created. You know what I mean? They created boxes to put us in, and then they mark who goes in what box, and then they say, oh, that means you're this. That means you're this. You can't create labels for people. And even if you do, your DNA doesn't support it. And this is not me saying this. You can go on any Ancestry website and look it up. Anywhere where you could do a swab test, go look it up. Read their website. They'll let you know this is for entertainment purposes only, bro. So you motherfuckers who keep coming with this bullshit DNA shit, it is what it is. But, you know, let's keep going.
So this is Clyde Perry, his son. This is his death certificate. He was a farmer. They lived in South Carolina. But where was Albert Perry born? Florida. Not South Carolina. In a time when Florida was not even under U.S. jurisdiction. He was born in 1816. Some say 1819. Regardless of that, the U.S. territory had not been handed back over to the U.S. until the 1820s. Florida became a state. Florida became a state in 1845. Who was in Florida the whole time? The Yamasee, the Creek. Later, they misnamed them the Seminole. This is right post after the War of 1812, 1813, 1814, Andrew Jackson running around going crazy in Georgia, South Carolina, etc. And you got a bunch of black Indians fighting at the Black Fort, Sunafi Tustanigi. What are y'all talking about that Perry was a slave? You have no proof. Here he is on the census with all of his children. Here he is in the city that I was born in. Albert Perry was in the city. You know how many Perrys I know? Here he is trying to get land back that they took from him. Y'all are done. Let's shift speeds and deal with the Dixon Mounds, because I got to tell you something. Here is the Southeast. Dixon is up here. Now, let me read from this report right here. You see the sources right there. But what does it say? It says researchers have identified 5 major haplogroups in Native Americans, A, B, C, D, and X. These are mitochondria, all right, from this report, from extant indigenous populations. All right, so individual sequences, listen to this, outside of these groups were classified as contamination and were omitted for further analysis. They have a policy in genetics. When you see black stuff pop up, that's contamination. Something went wrong. Throw this shit away. You see the source right there. So the Dixon Mounds were interesting because they tested 156 of these, but they found out that it was 7,000 as a whole burial, and there was differences. The hunter-gatherer populations were larger, bigger, no bone lesions. No, what's going on? So they did the study and they found out the earlier group had a mixed hunter-gatherer balanced diet. Screenshot. They looked at the other group and they found the skeletons had significant changes because of agriculture. So the people were shorter, with less health, weaker bones because of corn, wheat, and maize, survival food. And so the oldest genes in the world are Black Americans' genes. And no matter how much proof we bring, they still don't want to admit we are America's first nation.
Ask you a question. CD6 genome sequence?
Yeah.
It's Caucasians, right? And the so-called Native Americans, right? There ain't no way you can be indigenous American. You're a 6 genome sequence. See what I'm saying? So it's impossible you're indigenous to anywhere. You come way later for the whole world is populated. You see what I'm saying? But can 2 Caucasian people make an African?
Definitely can't.
Why?
Because they don't got that. They don't got that gene. They don't have it.
It's Mendel's law. It's Mendel's law. You can get the recessive from the dominant, but you can't get the dominant from the recessive.
Right.
Meaning, you 2 6 genome sequence can't lay down and make a 9. It's simple as that. Don't even have nothing to do with race, nothing else. That's just a fact. If you're a 6 genome, 2 of you cannot lay down and make a 9 genome.
Yeah, that don't even.
That's the African genome. Two Native Americans, so-called Native Americans, cannot make another group except for the 6 genome Native American or Caucasian. Eurasian, right? So that's how you know that they're not indigenous people to anything. You see what I'm saying? That's just genetics, simple genetics. There's no way they could be indigenous. So, but they stopped it there and said, oh, they have the highest genetics of diversity. No.
Yeah, ain't that something?
Because that 9, 2 9 genomes cannot lay down and make a 12.
No, I can't do that.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's why. Why not?
They don't got it. You don't.
It's 3 more genomes than the 9.
Right. It's 3 more than
2 9 genome sequence people are not going to lay down and make a 12. It's simple genetics.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
But not just that, because you still have another genome to consider. So it's impossible and completely preposterous to think that a 9 genome or a 6 or anything else, 2 of them lay down and make a 15 genome, the so-called Black Americans.
Now, even if you don't subscribe to, okay, Black Americans have a 12 genome, blah, 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 whatever. You don't want to subscribe to that, even though it's factual, and even though you can really look into these things and find it. A lot of people love to give dumb pushback, so whatever. You don't subscribe to that. We can just lump them in the group. Black people, as a whole, were here before any Native American, anybody with fair skin, brown people, they like to call themselves, yellow people, white people. We were here first. If you look at a color scale, you can see how it goes down and where these people land. You know what I mean? So, but a color scale doesn't prove anything. I understand that. But listen, what I'm saying is we were here first. What they want you to believe, even if we're going with the out of Africa theory, which I don't believe in the out of Africa theory, but let's say we're going with the out of Africa theory, right? What they want you to believe is that humans were here in Africa and they stayed in Africa and didn't venture off the continent until they started having lighter people like brown people and white people and yellow people. And those people were exiled from Africa and fled to Europe, the Americas, and Asia. Well, really Europe. They fled east, Europe, because the reason, well, I guess South America too. So to the Americas, Europe, and the rest of the world. They populate the rest of the world while we all stayed in Africa. That makes no fucking sense. Why wouldn't people travel? Why wouldn't people go around the world and see what else is out there? I mean, and we're talking thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands of years, or at least, even if we don't want to run that far, 10,000 years at least before another race showed up. So if we're talking 10,000 years before another race showed up, why the fuck didn't we travel the whole world? And second, nobody else can claim indigenous to anything if we were the first people here. We're the indigenous to the earth. You motherfuckers are all just offspring of us. You know what I mean? It's like you try to go in your daddy's house and say, this is my house. You know what I mean? Like, no, nigga, this my shit. You just living here. That's it. So it's like, and this is not to say, oh, we own everything in the world. Nobody else owns anything. No, but it is to prove that you motherfuckers don't know what you're talking about, bro. You're just running shit. Like, that theory, out of Africa theory, makes no sense. It could be plausible. It could not be plausible. It's just as plausible as the out of America theory. It's just as plausible as the out of Russia theory. You know what I mean? The Tartarian civilization is just as plausible as any of these things. They say, well, you don't have the hard evidence, but we have hard evidence for Native Americans coming here. And I seen that they just predated. They're like, oh, Native Americans might have been here even further back than we know because we found footprints on an island. So I'm like, you don't know who the fuck footprints them is. They act like they did. They trace the footprints back to them. Bro, you don't know who the fuck footprints them is. This is all guesses. You niggas are guessing. So don't come in here trying to disprove anything with theories. You're trying to disprove a theory with a theory. But we actually have hard evidence to back this shit up, like genealogy. If you do your genealogy, it runs back. It starts to make the story that they tell us, the mainstream narrative, not make sense. You know what I mean? How, like he said, like I've heard plenty of people break it up. Like, how was there completely full towns of black people being bombed during slavery? Makes no fucking sense. You know what I mean? Like, how is there full black towns of people in the South being bombed during slavery? I mean, we know why they would be being bombed, but how were they allowed to have full black towns in the South? Why, when Native Americans, not all, some Native Americans say when they came here, some Native Americans said they originated here and that life originated in Americas, which supports the out of America theory. I don't know why I did quotations, but it supports the out of America theory. You know what I mean? Some Native Americans said they got here and seen other people as they moved down from Canada down to the Americas. They ran into other tribe and supernatural beings. So they even say, well, not all of them, because I want to be genuine. I don't want to be disingenuous. Some tribes say when they got here, they met other tribes. You know what I mean? So there were people here. You know what I mean? Y'all just don't want to admit that it was us. You know what I mean? And I heard somebody in my comments say, how are you indigenous? How are you indigenous when they were here? It doesn't matter, because I was talking, because I had the video of the African guy. I mean, the professor talking about Africans coming over here. And he's like, even if you came over here during the Mansa Musa time, that doesn't make you indigenous. That just still makes you just as you migrated just like the white people. And I said, they came over here from somewhere else. Bruh, they migrated over here. The fuck? And I don't subscribe to the Mansa Musa theory and things like that. But these are things that I use to say, bro, it was completely plausible, because they want you to believe that Africans are retarded. So any black person fighting for these using their theories or what they say, they want you to believe that black people were fucking stupid and couldn't travel the world. They were savages, and that it took the Europeans to come around the world and civilize everyone. So it's impossible for you to have been in Americas because you weren't even civilized enough to make a boat. And you black ass motherfuckers out here believing that shit, bro. It's sick. It's fucking sick. Get your shit together, bro. Get your shit together. I don't care if you want to say, I'm not Native American. That's fine. You have a right to your own opinion. You have a right to be whoever the fuck you want to be. If you want to say you're African, that's fine with me. But don't get out here and start going against your own people because you don't agree with what they're saying without ever doing the research. Like I had a dude in my comments out here talking about, I made a video about the DNA, right? Go check it out on the channel. I made a video about the DNA, right? He goes, sends me a link to a video that says all the shit that I already disproved in my DNA video. And that doesn't make sense. And with us, we're not trying to just disprove a theory with a theory. We're telling you what the fuck it is. It just is. It just is. We were the original people of the earth. It only makes sense that we will be in the Americas before any other people. We will be in every continent before any other people. And very few groups, but there are groups out here like the Asians that admit they come from an older, darker civilization. That's where they come from, that migrated to Asia. That's exactly where the rest of you motherfuckers come from. A darker civilization that migrated to the Americas. And so on. You know what I mean? For every country around. You're all, I don't know about the Caucasians. That's different. But the rest of you brown motherfuckers, you come from us. The Caucasians could come from us too. Albinos. You know what I mean? So it's like, you motherfuckers don't really. Let's keep going.
Right.
The more genomes you have in your population, the more propensity you'll have in your population to have genius. You're going to see colors and hear sounds differently. Hence us making all the genres of music: jazz, blues, rock, hip hop, R&B, country and western, reggaeton, gospel, go-go. I keep going. Yeah. Everything. That's why we made all the inventions, because of our genome sequencing. These people are over there literally eating mosquito burgers. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They are over there, literally hundreds of millions of people in Africa live in mud huts still today. When we're the innovators of the planet, shows right through the gene. This is what they are hiding. What they have done when they did this genome sequencing, since it didn't match their theories,
Right.
they moved it into matching the theories, is what they did. They changed the R1 because the so-called Black Americans possess the R1 and the D haplogroups. I've proven that myself. That is a fact, but I've also proven that the R1 and the R1B haplogroups come from the Americas. It don't come from no Iran and Iraq, Kuwait, and all that trash. I did that right through the glyphs. Like I show that I show it right through the hieroglyphics, right through the Sumerians particularly, because they say they're the first. See, I always I go to the beginning. I don't start the book in the middle and start working in the 1500s. Who's the first civilization on the planet? That's what I want to know.
Right.
Bomb. Then I deal with that. That's how I do my thing. I don't, you know what I mean? We have the highest genome sequence on the planet, cuz. We have the highest genome sequence on the planet right here in the Americas, the motherlands, grows a frequency that no other lands do. This is the old world. They brought the old world ideologies to our, you see, they called this a whole nother world.
Right. They tricked the shit out of us, bro.
Really not. See, we don't remember nothing. That's the whole thing. Our planet travels like that. People don't know because these Caucasian scientists don't have a pineal gland. Pineal gland, their pineal gland activation is a calcification is at 80%, 60 to 80% in their population. Only 20% of their population is receiving the light and dark cycle.
Wow.
Yes. Look, your pineal gland reads the light and dark cycle of the universe and conveys that information through the soles of your feet to the planet. That's who you are. That's what you're here to do. You're the consciousness, basically. See what I'm saying? 80% of those people do not have that activation. So while you're, because the planet travels like a vortex, light and dark cycle, but a frequency, right? Light, dark cycle. They don't read it. So while we're doing this, they not doing shit.
Ain't it, man?
We go into our light cycle, we do the pyramids, we can build stars, we're spacewalking, the whole thing. You're the spaceborne races. You just don't know that. But they ain't gonna tell you because they're your enemy. You see right here, I ain't telling you that, tripping. So when they see, boom, and you go underneath, you go back to your dark cycle, like, because the consciousness falls on the planet. There's 9 sun cycles. You see what I'm saying? With the light and dark cycles of it. So when the dark cycle comes, they ain't attached to that. So they see that we don't remember nothing, and they was the slaves. So they start trying to establish their job to keep us asleep as possible. That's why some people walk right up to you, a stranger walk up to you, like, you're an African, you're an African, right? Like, and if you say yeah, they'll be like, all right, cool.
Right.
and they want to know is you still sleep, because they know. Just like them Native Americans, look up the Lakota story about when they first met us. They know exactly who we are. The first story of the Lakota meeting us, they were trying to get us, when they met us, they was like, yo, don't make them mad. Don't make that person mad, and come over here and make what I women. That's what they did. They knew we wasn't no damn Africans. They knew they just came out the damn caves and all that. They knew it. They know that we is the star people. They know that. They don't think that these people don't know. But now that we back in our consciousness is back on the planet, you're going to pay for everything you did.
That's what they got to know.
You got to pay. You're going to pay. The sun see you. The earth. You mess with the earth's children. Like, literally, the people who are birthed to the planet, the first original people. That's what this whole thing is about, man. It's all about you. The whole freaking thing is to they can't stop you from rising, but they want to keep you up underneath that thing for as long as possible. And now you see they're kirking out now because they gotta leave, and they gotta leave, and they know it. Like, I'm talking about in the next couple months. Y'all don't realize that this planet about to it's not gonna end, but it's gonna end for the way it is. The age of innovation is upon us.
Wow. Yeah,
that's what people don't realize, and their mind frame is obsolete and cannot move into that frequency. You're gonna break your damn back with it. That's what I'm saying.
So I got a question then. So they've been like preparing for that.
They built all them underground bunkers stuff. They think they're gonna get saved. They don't think that. They don't get it. That's the earth you're dealing with. The earth itself is very intelligent, way more intelligent than us. Been through the cycles, knows the situation. Right. And literally, it's going to strategically get you out of here.
So in my argument with dude in my comment section, he was basically saying, well, I made my evidence video. This motherfucker links me to a video. Normally I wouldn't click on nobody's links, I don't give a fuck. But I was like, all right, let me see, because we've been in 5-10 day argument, right? Debate, I like to call it. But it's no longer a debate because that's not here nor there. I click on the link, it takes me to a video where motherfuckers just, I found my parents through DNA. I did this through DNA. I did that. It's like nobody is saying that if you go commit a crime, they can't find your DNA and it's not accurate. Nobody's saying that if you have a son or a father or a parent or a brother or a sister, a close relative, that you can't match their DNA. Up to damn near 100%. Well, not even to 100%. I think it's only 99%. But yeah, they can match it up to 99%. Nobody's not saying that. We're saying DNA cannot tell you what continent you come from. DNA cannot trace your 200 ancestors your 200 grandparents, because you're going to have 200 grandparents after 8 generations. Your DNA cannot trace that. And where each one of them come from and which continent that they come from, they don't have the DNA from the past to trace it. Now, what they are doing is taking your DNA, they're taking 100 African Americans from here, and they put them in the African group because they're like, oh yeah, these are Africans. They already have a narrative of who the fuck we are. So of course, when they try to link you to groups, you're already put in an African group, so African is gonna come up for you. This is all fake, bro. And if I'm not explaining it good, I hope she can. Let's keep going.
But we don't. Most Black Americans don't have direct DNA or IBD matches to anyone in Nigeria at all. But I believe what you're talking about is the admixture results that give percentages like 70% African or 70% Nigerian. So I'm going to go back and explain it to you step by step so you can understand what I was trying to get at in that last video. So I was showing the chart that shows the admixed American groups and how 2 admixed American groups, ASW and ACB, are being categorized as African as opposed to American. And what you and many other people fail to understand is that these labels are created before anything is analyzed at all. Researchers determine a label, they determine a group. So they say the superpopulations are going to be the continents, Africa, Americas, Europe. They determine the populations. So Yoruba, Mendi, African descent in the Americas. They decide what those populations are first. They decide this before they test anyone's DNA, before they get coordinates, before they do clusters, anything at all. So when they're forming a reference panel and they're testing people to get the frequencies, when you have a group like ASW and ACB, they're creating the template of African. So why are you getting a similarity score of close to Nigeria or close to West African? It's because likely you are scoring close to groups that they have already labeled as African. The only reason you're matching the template is because you match the groups that they decided were African. If you took those same groups, if you took ASW and ACB and moved them over to the Americas, guess what? Your DNA profile would now say that you're 70% American if you are matching those 2 groups. Hell, if you were matching Yoruba and they moved Yoruba over to European, then suddenly you'd be 80% European. DNA testing is looking at allele frequency similarity. You are similar to a template. The template, though, is based on research decisions and labeling. If you were to change any of these populations and label them differently or switch them around, the template changes because it's how they're grouping them together to decide this is an African profile, this is a profile of the Americas, or even at a group, this is an African American profile, this is a Yoruba profile. None of these things just naturally exist in nature. So if ASW and ACB were properly labeled as post-colonial American groups and were in the admixed American groups like Puerto Ricans, like Mexicans in Los Angeles, as they should be, then people who have strong similarity to these reference groups would be showing up on their DNA outputs as a high percentage of American. So you have to wonder, if the labels are created before the genetics is even looked at, then what is the motivation for putting ASW and ACB in Africa?
And now I want to start by saying, I'm not no fucking mathematician with this next clip, but this lady has traced back, she went back, did put the numbers together by using the data that is available, like the census data, the slavery narrative data, all of this data, put it in, and you look at what she got. And before we say, I can say, I'm not sure if this is true, but it's somebody putting in the work. So anybody who's going to discredit this or say, oh, well, that's not true, why don't you go put in all the math to disprove her? You know what I mean? Put in the math to disprove her. You know what? I'll work on some of that math too. I'll use ChatGPT to do my math though. You know, I even be sitting up here doing all that, but let's keep going.
I think I did it. I have just created a mathematical model showing that it is nearly impossible for Black Americans to have nearly 70% African admixture because population genetics and history are considered 2 separate disciplines in academia, none of the estimations actually look at the population counts in colonial America to see if it's even possible that the African slave population could have contributed that much African ancestry to its descendants. So I wanted to know, how would this change if we actually used data that was grounded in historical primary sources and official records? I constructed estimates using US Census counts, tax rolls, databases like slave voyages, and I came up with some estimates about how many African-born slaves were brought into what would become the United States between the years 1620, so not too long after the first colonists arrived, all the way until 1808, when African slave importation was banned in the United States. Then I decided to calculate pairing probabilities, which is essentially looking at how many people of each group, African enslaved, non-African enslaved, and European colonists in the total population have a probability of pairing or partnering with each other. As you can see, because of the total population, African-only pairings are pretty low. The highest probability for both African and non-African slaves was pairing with a European colonist. Obviously, this is true because of just sheer population numbers, but we also know from the historical record that European colonists had the access and the legal right to dictate who slaves partnered and paired with. So then I was like, okay, even if we accept that there was a lot of pairing between colonists and slaves, I know people are going to say, well, they didn't do that. They actually just had slaves partner with each other because of the geographic location, because of social status, whatnot. Okay, that's fine. So I applied a clustering coefficient and I used the strongest weight that I possibly could before it mathematically broke. Then using standard inheritance formulas, I calculated the percentage of African ancestry that the child would have based on the different pairing probabilities. This is the key piece here. All of his population was happening over time. So that means that the percentage of pure African ancestry was going to be diluted every generation, even with more people coming in, because the folks that are, once they're being imported or once they're immigrating, they're going to be mixing with the general population of slaves or otherwise. So after weighting, accounting for the clustering, the probability of each different pairing is right there. Notice that African with African, which is the only combination that would produce 100% African ancestry, only has 0.2 chance percent of happening in colonial America. When you put all that together, by the end of that early period in 1684, you're looking at less than 1% of African ancestry in the total population. So why so low? The key point is down there. African-born slaves were only 2% of the population. So they can't contribute a huge amount of ancestry when they're like literally the smallest group, the smallest minority group in the entire population. So then I repeated this process, carrying over the percentage of African ancestry in the population from the early period and moving that into the middle period and then later on the late period. And I just did the same process over and over again with the same assumptions based on the estimated population numbers. So by the end of the middle period, which was 1685 to about 1747, we have an estimated, there it is, 4.19% African ancestry in the population, which was a significant increase. But again, Africans are still only 9.6% of the total population. By the time we get to 1808, with the largest waves of imported African-born slaves, we end with the ban on importation at about 5.2% African ancestry in the colonial United States. So that means at no point from 1620 to 1808 were Africans ever more than 10% of the total population. And even when their numbers increase, it's not like they're all going to one place at one time. So if you say, well, 300,000 slaves came in between 1748 and 1808, you're right, but that's a period of over 80 years. And not all slaves were going to one location. They were spread throughout the colonies. So then you take this scenario all the way into 2025. We have the end of slavery in the Americas, and we have lots of booms in immigration from other groups, but we don't have any more large-scale mass immigration of continental Africans into the United States. So then I used the US Census numbers from 2020 as my new population estimates, and I came up with the group other to signify all the other ethnicities, and including some Africans that are now entering into the United States. Black Americans are going to be considered my enslaved group, since that is the group in the United States that is recognized to be the direct descendants of enslaved people. So carrying forward the ancestry that was at the end of 1808, which was 5.2%, using the same process that I've done before, adding in clustering, weighting the averages, looking at total populations, the current African ancestry that would be present in the United States is about 4.6%. If a founder population never reaches more than 10% of the total population, they aren't socially and geographically isolated, there are no large-scale immigration events, and their immigration was more like a pipeline over 200 years, then there is no way that their ancestry could dominate their descendants' ancestry 200 years after that.
Man, get in here, 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 get in here. Did you hear about the secret bombshell DNA of the so-called Black Americans? But go and take a screenshot. And I'm gonna have to make a part 2 to show you what they found. But look at this, the discovery. What the DNA study reveals. The recent banned DNA study has uncovered evidence suggesting that many Black Americans may have roots that trace back to the indigenous tribes. Ho, 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 ho. Ho, 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 ho. Ho, ho! We've been trying to tell you who we are, right? Why would you ban it? Why would you ban it, right? Because you can't control the narrative. You can't control the narrative of a transatlantic slave trade. You can't control it. But in part 2, I'm going to show you what they found. And the DNA don't come back to Africa. Wait till you see where the DNA come back from.
Now, I gotta be honest with y'all. I can't just throw in clips to fit my damn narrative. The truth is that that is not true what he said. African Americans are not being banned from taking DNA tests, neither is any other racial group. But what is true is that geneticists are now all at the same time, for some reason, starting to pivot away from racially targeted genetics, which now that Black people are saying we're the Aboriginal people and you people are saying, go do a DNA test. Well, now they don't want to do racial DNA tests anymore. They don't want to prove it. They don't want to go there. You know what they're saying? They're saying we're pivoting away from that because race is just a social construct. Bitch, you created that social construct. You literally created it. You literally have enforced it. You literally used that to keep us at the bottom of society. And now all of a sudden, we don't want to, yeah, but that's what they do when shit don't go. When they see the writing on the wall and they're trying to save themselves, this is exactly what they do. It's been your boy Hendo. I appreciate y'all for checking in with me, and we out. Oh, no. Like, comment, subscribe. Hype this bitch up, man. Hype it up for me, man. Let's get it to 200 likes. Can we get it to 200 likes? Fuck with the boy. And could somebody hit the hype button? I ain't had a hype video yet. Cause y'all, just give me a hype, please. Stop hyping these lame ass niggas. Hype me. Give me a hype. I'm just fucking around. Good looking out, y'all, though, for coming through, and we out.